What is up, guys? Welcome to the Brewcast. And this episode 55, by the way, geez, we're getting deep into it at this point. We're going to be talking about Francis Ngannou, the absolute brick shithouse new heavyweight champion of the UFC. He is a large man. We're going to talk about whether he's on drugs or not, whether I think he's on drugs or not, whether I think he's on steroids or not. When I say steroids, I mean PEDs more generally. Steroids just makes for a good clickbaity title. But before we start, please, if you guys feel like it, if you feel like increasing your test levels, go visit the Brewcast YouTube channel. We have over, I think, 85 videos at this stage. As you guys know, 55 Brewcast episodes, which are the more longer form podcast episodes we do. We have Natty or Nots and a whole bunch of other MMA fighters, Kamaru Usman, Paulo Costa, some ADCC guys like Andre Galvao. There's more coming up. We don't only do those, we also talk about other things. We get a little bit more into philosophy, a little bit into, the philosophy of being jacked, the impact on society's beauty standards, fat acceptance. We also do some news stuff in a segment that I call low test news about some of the, how shall we say, radical lefty policy that's being implemented in today's society. But also anything that would be considered low testosterone. We talk about a whole bunch of other things. We do MMA fight predictions, boxing fight predictions, talk about boxing, talk about strongman, powerlifting, etc. And then one last thing before we go, if you guys are looking for a new shirt, some new sexy apparel, go check out the Look at My Fucking Guns line of apparel over at the Brewcast merch shop. Now, Look at My Fucking Guns is a twofold demonstration of your test levels. Okay, firstly, the arms. Now, here at the Brewcast, we believe in developing yourself physically, and the arms are a key to that, and so the guns are necessary. And secondly, we believe in the right to protect yourself and your family with a firearm if necessary, and so the right to bear arms is also necessary. And so Look at My Fucking Guns is the amalgamation of these two different philosophies. So if you're interested in a shirt, please go check it out on the Brewcast merch shop. Now to get into the video. So Francis Ngannou, guys. Ngannou is a Chad, okay? He is a 6'4", 260-pound Kobe beef human boner, okay? He is huge. And by the way, I love Francis, so the fact that I'm making predictions on whether he's natty or not in this video, I still love the guy to bits. I love watching his fights. He's an absolute powerhouse. And his new fight against Stipe, I mean, my God, I'm so happy he went to go box with Teddy, and he's trained because his hooks are so tight now and the uppercuts are so tight. He's not swinging for the fences. He looked really, really good technically, and obviously he knocked Stipe out, which was fantastic. So, first thing, I don't know if you guys know what an FFMI calculation is. So if you know what a BMI is your weight divided by your height squared, right? And it pops out a number which lets you know whether you're at an unhealthy body weight. Now, FFMI is a similar thing, except it also takes into account your body fat percentage. And so you can determine to some degree the likelihood that a person is natural depending on how much muscle mass they carry, right? Now, I'm going to guess Francis here is around about 13% body fat. Might be a little bit high, might be a little bit low. I don't think he's quite single digit when he's in fight shape, but I think that's a decent number. Now, if you take that number, you input his height and his weight, you get an FFMI of about 27. Now, this is crazy, batshit insane, because 21 is like your average gym goer. He isn't really very jacked, but he does go to the gym, right? He's like a beginner. 21, 22 is like you're pretty jacked. By most people's standards, you're quite jacked. 23, you look really, really juicy, and you could just be a low-level, like, steroid user. 24, you are like reaching peak of natural potential. Most people can't get there natty without taking drugs. 25, it's like, that's like it's like, come on, you're pretty much on juice. There are some natty guys there, but it's so rare. And then over 25, it's like almost none. Now, there have been people allegedly who've been drug-free who've been over 25, but really, guys, it doesn't happen. And Francis is 27. Now, obviously, he's got good genetics for muscle mass. He's got, he's just built like a brick shithouse. And I'm not saying he wouldn't be if he was natty, but I really just don't see, as an MMA fighter who doesn't even have hypertrophy as his primary goal, how the hell he can be so large without taking juice. Okay, so let's talk about him a little bit. I say this with MMA guys a lot, but I don't see how people make the arguments for these guys being natty. Like, I can understand some of them, all right, because the guys don't look like they're on juice. But I think about, this is the counter argument, and this doesn't mean I'm right, but this is just what I think. If your livelihood depends on you winning fights, depends on you kicking ass, why wouldn't you take every precaution possible to ensure that you maintain your livelihood, right? Because a lot of these guys don't necessarily have other options. Okay, they're fighters, they didn't go study, they don't necessarily have another vice or another job they could do. They are somewhat dependent on winning the fights. Or they do enjoy the lifestyle of being a fighter, and why would you compromise that? Now, people are going to say, yes, but USADA regulates the UFC. That's true, but I don't know if you guys know how easy it is to pass a drug test. Passing a drug test is something you can pretty much do in your sleep, as long as you time it correctly, right? There is shit you can take where you can inject like 3 days before the test, and then the day of the test, it'll be clean. And people say, yeah, but there's random drug tests. And I go, well, sure, but there's plenty of ways of getting around that too. Now, the fact that people get tested makes it more difficult, and it kind of restricts the substance list you can be on, but it still happens. And also remember, it doesn't necessarily just mean steroids. It could be weight cutters like diuretics, it could be something like Clen, it could be a whole bunch of things that aren't necessarily steroids. Now, Francis is a heavyweight, so he doesn't really have to make weight, and so I don't know if it's likely that he's on something like diuretics. I would doubt it. And also, the thing with him is he's just so large that it really does come down to, is he on some PEDs? Now, he's never been busted for anything to my knowledge. But, if we take a look at some people who have been busted, like John Jones has been busted more. He's been busted for taking stuff more times than anybody at this point, okay, except for Chris Cyborg, because she's just on another level. John isn't nearly Francis's size in terms of muscle mass. Now, I don't want to make a direct comparison because some people are just built bigger, and clearly Francis is built like a brick shit house and John is built like a bit of a twig. But the point is, guys don't really get this big without being on the juice. Okay? I really don't see a way that this could be natty, especially considering the fact that Francis is an MMA fighter, and MMA fighters don't focus on hypertrophy, they focus on performance. Their ultimate goal isn't muscle mass, because too much muscle mass is also not a good thing, right? They care about punching power, they care about takedown ability, they care about a very specific set of things. Now, the fact that Francis knocks people out like that, his God-given power, I think, is genetic. I don't think that has anything to do with drugs, although drugs will probably assist you in developing certain skills. His fighting style doesn't necessitate drugs, I would say, but they would certainly assist in, because his style is sort of, or has been known to be sort of very aggressive, throwing bombs, trying to find those knockout punches. But then again, if you look at his new fight against Stipe, he's kind of moved away from that a little bit. He's still relatively aggressive, but he's much more technical. The strikes are very clean. They're not focused on swinging. So overall, I wouldn't necessarily say that his style necessitates drug use, but I would say that I would still think that it's likely he's on juice, just because of the fact that he's built like such a fucking Chad, guys. I mean, come on. You do not get this big natty when you're not even trying to be huge. It is just insane. It's next level. But okay, that's going to be the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, check out the Brewcast if you want more high test content. We even have some free programs. We have a How to Look Like Bane workout program if you guys want to check that out. Also a free bench program that I set up. And again, the Brewcast merch shop. Look at my fucking guns apparel. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and goodbye.